Hello and welcome to Movies, Films, and Flicks. I am Mark Hoffmeyer, and I'm very thankful for all of our listeners. Over the last 3 years, we've really built a loyal audience, and I just appreciate all the time you spent to listening to us talk about Kurt Russell, random movie awards, and Deep Blue Sea. So I figured I would do something to, show my gratitude and show you how thankful I am with Thanksgiving coming up in the States. So I went ahead and I recorded a commentary for Deep Blue Sea, the 1999 shark classic directed by Renny Harlin. I love this movie. I was working in a movie theater when it came out in 99. I remember how crazy the audiences went for it, just yelling and jumping out of their seats. And it was just such a cool experience to watch. Also, it's the first DVD I ever bought. So I still have it. I actually listened to the commentary by Renny Harlin and Samuel Jackson on the DVD I got almost 20 years ago. And I wrote an article about the trip that Stellan Skarsgård takes after he gets his arm bit off. And that got picked up by Wired. Brian Raftery interviewed me about it. And it led to a lot of great opportunities. So throughout my life, like the last 20 years, Deep Blue Sea has just been one of my favorite films. I get the knocks on it. I totally understand the honest trailers and why it was on How Did This Get Made, but I still love it. I think just the situations around me watching it and just the creativeness. I mean, Ebert loves it. I know that doesn't mean a lot to much people, but Roger Ebert just said he loves it because of the surprises in it. And I think that holds up. I mean, this is a $100 million movie that, I don't know, it doesn't get old, has good creature effects, has some good shocks. And so what we're going to do is, I know a lot of you aren't going to be able, don't have time to sit around and watch the movie and listen to my commentary. So I'm going to go through this movie and you can either listen to it. I'm going to try to give as much backstory, my opinions, my wild theories on it. But if you're also watching it, here's what we're going to do. So right now I'm on the movie. I'm about to queue it up. I'm actually on 1 second right now waiting to press play. So if you want to watch this movie with me, so what we're going to do is, I guess I'll go 3, 2, 1, play. And when I say that, turn on the movie. And then you're going to listen to my tinfoil hat theories and love of this movie for an hour and 44 minutes. Listen, right now you're probably thinking that's a long time, but at the end of it, you're going to be very thankful because, this movie deserves it. And you're probably wondering, why shouldn't I just listen to the Blu-ray commentary with the director and Samuel Jackson? Well, I did a ton of research on this. I listened to those. I read every article. I've written a lot of articles. So I'm going to bring everything I possibly can into this movie. And I think you're going to love it. So here we go. 3, 2, 1, play. All right. So we're starting off. Like I said earlier, this movie was directed by Renny Harlin, the dude who directed Die Hard, Cliffhanger, Long Kiss Goodnight, Nightmare on Elm Street 4. After listening to the commentary, I really found out how much love he had for this movie and how much love he has for, obviously, Jaws and Jurassic Park and all of those. And even when he started off talking about this film, he was a little self-conscious because he didn't want to do it because it's similar to Jaws. But he's like, well, Jaws was released 24 years ago, so it's time for another great shark film. And I think he was successful in this. And as we're starting off, I always disliked the opening scene with the college kids on a catamaran just being college kids. I never thought it, I don't know, I didn't really feel like it felt in. I know Harlan wanted it to be kind of like a homage to Jaws in the beginning with the college kids, and you have college kids here. But as I was watching this movie again, I kind of came up on a theory that I think is correct. So if we're to believe that these sharks actually sunk a ship and herded humans to sink an entire underwater facility, then what I'm thinking here is, so this shark escapes, right? It's one of the smaller ones that gets out. And I think the point of it escaping was to see what the response time was from the crew of the Aquatica. So we escape. How far can I get before it tracks me down? Are there trackers on me? If I escape, is there a tracker? And you're going to think this is insane that sharks are thinking this, but the more you watch this movie, you're going to realize that they're really smart. They're basically Alan Rickman, Hans Gruber from Die Hard. I mean, these guys are mustache-twirling villains who, I guess they're not really villains because, some people are going to say the scientists are these because they genetically, deal with their brains, make them smart. That's beside the point. We'll get into it later. But this scene, I think this shark is simply attacking these college kids because it's checking the response time to see how fast they can get to him. So right now, I never liked it. I'm like, this doesn't make sense. Why would this shark not completely obliterate this boat, having seen everything? And I guess to make sense of it, I just think this shark is doing this to see what it can get away with before it's hunted down. Interestingly enough, is this movie was filmed at the Rosarita Studios in Mexico, where they shot Titanic. So right now they're inside this massive water tank. And what I love most about this movie is there were a lot of scenes that were filmed in these water tanks where they would build sets above the tanks and then they would just drop the sets into the water to make it seem like water was rushing in. That's pretty ingenious. I love the way they did that. So right now the shark's jumping through. You have a teenager getting head-butted, another teenager falling. You're probably thinking that they're going to be eaten pretty quickly by this massive shark. But as we see, they're climbing up. They're swimming. And I don't know how the shark got 100 yards away. Because I don't know. I don't get it. But it makes sense as far as, whatever they're doing. So as we're going along here, you're going to see TJ, good old Thomas Jane in this movie. He comes out and he manages to snag the shark, shoots two harpoons into the shark and catches it pretty easily. The scene actually reminds me a lot of The Meg, where the people in the Meg just keep falling off of the boats. So these teenagers fall in, Thomas James comes out of nowhere, snag this shark. And as we watch the movie further on, this shark could have really just taken off with this boat, but it doesn't. So I'm telling y'all, this thing did this on purpose to see how fast TJ, or Carter Blake, I'm just going to call him TJ, or Big Pun, because he was the Punisher. Random note, all three Punisher movies either have a 28 or 29% Rotten Tomato score, which is kind of a neat coincidence. So we're coming in here, we're actually meeting the supposed villain of the film, Dr. Susan McAllister, played by Saffron Burrows. A lot of people say that she's the villain. She is the one who does this test. She is the one who pushes the trials further, as we find out. They should have had more time. Also, later on, she frees the shark, which I wonder if that was the shark's plan all along, to go up there and do that and be like, yo, Saffron Burrows is going to let me go. So I'm just going to bite this dude's arm off, and then she's going to let me go. And then they're going to bring in we'll talk about it later. So yeah, they're saying that she's actually the villain. I mean, the sharks, if you think about this, much like in Jurassic Park, they're not really the villains. These were just three kind of mako or great white sharks that were just kind of hanging out. They got made super smart, and people just test on them all the time. So they're like, screw this. I'm not hanging out in this cage. We're going to escape. I mean, these sharks are basically Sylvester Stallone and Arnold Schwarzenegger in the escape plan. I mean, their plan's pretty good. They just get a little bit unlucky. But if they're looking to make an escape plan 3, because the second one's terrible, they should just pit Sylvester Stallone with these sharks. See what happens. Deep Blue Sea 2, the real one, because the sequel's horrible. So right now, we have Samuel L. Jackson looking at, standing behind another dude at a desk, talking to Saffron Burrows. She is kind of talking about getting more time. She needs more time. It's always the case in these movies with Hollow Man and all these other ones where, we got to have more time. We don't have enough time. Of course, they're like, well, this is your last ditch effort. We've actually piled a ton of money into creating an underwater lab where you can test sharks out. So this is a ridiculous amount of money that they poured into this. So Sam Jackson's, he wants to know what's going on. I do like this scene, though, because they're kind of establishing how far out it is. They're kind of establishing that she's a pilot. They establish that she has a plane. And I guess this establishes the alienation that they're going to, find later. I'm saying the word establish a lot. But if you look at this photography, when we get to the lab, I just want you to kind of keep an eye on Aquatica when we get there. Just check out the layout of it. It's kind of a rectangular type building. Just if you kind of look over here, it's once you figure out the layout, I'm going to walk you through a scene later that's probably going to blow your mind. It's going to really change the way you think about the kills in this movie, because this movie's actually really pretty bonkers, and I love it for it. And actually, Sam Jackson just compares it to Alcatraz, another escape plan thing. So Sylvester Stallone and Arnold Schwarzenegger ripped that off. But yeah, you're taking a look at it, rectangular area. I actually figured out the dimensions of this place for this article I wrote, and I did a lot of work staring at this thing. I never really thought back in 99 when I was watching this that I would be checking out the dimensions of this pen to figure out how far the shark traveled. So, I don't know, if you're watching the scene right now, this guy is dropping this 12-foot into the water. Beautiful shark. And if you look around, they have their set in Rosarito, Mexico, and the rest of it is just CGI. So they really did a good job with that at the time in 99. You think that this is out in the middle of nowhere. It was actually a really expensive film. I mean, shooting in water, if you look at Waterworld, Hard Rain. I don't know whose idea Hard Rain was. But actually, the 90s were all about really waterlogged movies. It's an interesting thing. So right now, you're being introduced to the different people. You have Sam Jackson. You have this lady who's going to become, fish food later on. Actually, this line that Samuel Jackson's saying right now about Tattoo, the plane, that was an improv. And the lady's reaction to him was that reaction. She had no idea what he was talking about. He made a joke about that. Actually, the reason Sam Jackson signed on to do this movie is Renny Harlin and he worked together in A Long Kiss Goodnight. They had a great time working together. So Renny's like, you're going to be in all my movies after this. And Sam's like, sure, I'll show up. So they sent him the script and Sam read it. He was originally the chef. They rewrote it. He became this character. And the reason Sam Jackson signed on to do this is he's like, yeah, there's great golf courses in Mexico. So he's like, on my days off, I would just play golf. Also, his daughter learned to get certified in scuba diving. He said this on the commentary. And also, there's many scenes in this movie where they would just shoot his reaction shots, like back to back to back, and then he'd leave while the rest of the crew did all the work and they did strategic camera work to kind of keep him out of the way, and he would just be golfing. So, I mean, it's like, he should join up with Adam Sandler, because I love how Adam Sandler goes to Hawaii just to make these movies. So here we're establishing good old TJ, Carter Blake, can ride. He's like a shark. I guess he's a shark whisperer. If there ever was one, he can just ride these sharks around. He can take license plates out of their mouths. I mean, they're going to be fed to other sharks later, but I guess it sort of establishes in the beginning that he can harpoon sharks easily. And then also, I mean, that shark just swims away. They just became buds. This shark that Thomas Jane is swimming with, they're friends. Now, this license plate that he's throwing up, if you're in your car listening, I'll explain it. He throws a license plate up that he gets out of the shark's mouth. And this license plate was actually from Jaws. So they took the license plate that the shark had and brought it back into this movie. So it's nice, one of the first homages to Jaws. Also, these sharks, these animatronic sharks, they had hydraulic engines in them. So the three sharks that they built, there is some CGI, which is probably the weakest part of this movie. But these sharks in this film, they put massive hydraulic engines into them. And there's a scene later on in Saffron Burrows' room where they were talking on the commentary where a shark got out of control when the animated, the shark jumped and it hit the ceiling in the room and made a lot of 2x4s and wood just explode. So it's pretty crazy that there are sharks with engines in them that were shooting themselves through ceilings in this film. I mean, that's pretty crazy. And there was Renny Harlin actually says during this that real sharks might be less dangerous than the sharks they created, which I love. It just adds another bonkers element to this film. And we're about to be introduced to Stellan Skarsgård here coming up pretty soon. Well, I guess we're talking about sharks. There's two first generations, and then there's a first generation shark that's 26 feet, I believe, which is 1 foot longer than Jaws. The one thing Renny Harlin wanted was a shark that was bigger than Jaws, which I kind of love. Like, ours is 1 foot bigger. It's like an amp that goes to 11. They just wanted